Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, Northlight Images. I recently did a video looking at what I mean when I say a print is good or a print is better than another, the general indications as to how I look at print quality. Now, not unexpectedly, I've had quite a few comments saying, but yes, Keith, can you give more numbers to this? Now, partly this is because some people are happy in dealing with numbers, but some people feel that numbers are more accurate than me saying, yeah, this is a great printer, I really like the prints. Now, that's fair enough if those numbers actually meant anything. Now, come back to some aspects of the numbers when looking at prints, and some of the testing that I'm going to be trying to do in the near future, looking at different printers. Now, you're always limited by, certainly in these videos, by what I can show in a video. So what you're seeing in this video is a rough approximation to what I see here because of the lighting I've got, and is an even rougher approximation to if you actually looked at the prints in a proper viewing cabinet or something like that. So subject to the inaccuracies that I simply cannot show most subtle differences in prints, why don't I choose charts? The most obvious one would be gamut charts. Now here I'm using the Max inbuilt, it's come with it for years, color sync utility. That allows you to look at profiles. It gives you nice pretty shapes like this, which you can rotate and move and do things, and you can compare them and whatever. Now people see these and they go, yes, this represents the gamut of the printer. Well, that's not actually true. It represents the gamut of the printer with the inks it's using, with the paper you're using, and with the profile that I've created. So I've had to make a profile for the printer using a test chart like that, and I've produced a profile. So already we're not actually evaluating the printer, we're evaluating the printer-paper combination with the settings that I've made for it when I've done the profiling. Now I have to choose media settings, various things like that, but I've covered profiling elsewhere. Suffice to say, it's already not quite as simple as a straightforward comparison of shapes here. One of the difficulties is that people think, well, this printer paper ink set has a particular gamut of, it's a complex shape, and it's a three-dimensional shape, and the differences between different gamuts are not simple numbers. This is representing this as a surface. It is a solid shape. If you look at the gamut of, let's say, a printer and paper, and this is examples here, are using a metallic paper on two printers. The smaller one here is the Epson 8500, and the larger one is the Epson ET18100, which is a good printer for glossy prints. This is a very glossy paper. Guess what? We get a larger gamut on the ET18100. Yeah, that's fair enough. That tells me what I'd expect to know from the type of inks. It gives me some information. But the problem is comparing gamuts, simple in-gamut, out-gamut measurements. The problem really comes down to there is it's much like comparing cars on nothing more than their maximum speed. Makes no difference how many gears it's got, how powerful the engine is, or anything like that. If two cars have the same maximum speed, you're effectively saying that, that's the gamuts are the same, to extend it into three-dimensional analogy of that. Well, to compare cars on just maximum speed is pretty meaningless anyway. Well, in most circumstances. There are many more factors come into it. And one of the things is that this shape here, and as I said, it's a complex shape. I just move it round again just so you can see some examples of it there. It's a complex shape. Yes, looking at this shape gives me an indication of where the printer may perform better. So if I'm looking to print natural colours, I may want a printer that does particularly well in the greens. I may want particularly strong oranges, blues, purples, depending on the types of image that I'm going to be printing. Now, I use a range of test images to look at prints, and to me it's actually looking at prints which always counts. So there's a test image. That's in the Adobe 98 color space. That is pretty good for for telling what a print's going to be like in general. If I want a much harsher test, I have this particular image here. Now this is in the Pro Photo color space. It has colors in this image that simply are not printable by any current printer you're likely to come across. Why bother with it? Because some of those printers I may find in photographic images and I may want to print them. Here comes a problem with just simply looking at gamut. How does, when I print an image, how does the print system, and I'll include that everything right from your editing right through to the settings on the printer driver and paper you put in, how does that printer system, or print system, how does it handle colours which are out of gamut? Well, that's what rendering intents are for. Perceptual rendering intent will try and smooth and compress out of gamut colours so that they are within the printable gamut of the paper. Relative colorimetric goes colours that are beyond the gamut, well, you just print them as best you can. You don't affect anything inside. Similarly, there's a saturation rendering intent, less used. Absolute colorimetric, that has certain specific uses. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail on rendering intents. Suffice to say, yet another plug for this book, Real World Colour Management. If you want to understand this stuff, read the book. You don't need to read all the book because some of it will be about commercial print that may have no relevance to you. But if you want to make sense of these numbers, you need the understanding to make sense of them. So if I look at that, I can say, well, there's an area where dark colours of a particular sort are not being handled well on the Epson ET8500, but they are being handled well on the 18100. Well, that's fair enough if my image has parts inside that gamut. If I really want to test things, this particular image here, as I say, is a very harsh one. Remember that this screen here is roughly sRGB gamut. This one here is roughly Adobe 98 gamut, but that matters not one jot because you're watching it on a video system, so you're seeing whatever gamut that happens to be and whatever YouTube does to videos when it processes them. So I've got this one here. Now I can look at which bits of this, loads of this will be out of gamut for most printers. There are loads of bits, but I can actually look at a real world print. If I want to be really harsh in testing things, I can use a synthetic image like that one, the 28 balls test image. It's by Bill Atkinson. I've got quite a lot of these are available for download on or links to them on the test images page, which I'll put notes to with this video. That, at the moment, all that image is showing me the limitations of this iMac display. To try and print that, you are never going to get it. No printer and print system can print that correctly. Well, you think, well, what's the point of doing it? Well, it shows me where there may be problems. So, because I've profiled these papers fairly well, this particular one, there are no nasty sharp transitions in the colours. Now, I can see some slight transitions in the colours that I don't think should necessarily be there. But are they problems? No. I've got a print. Oh, and by the way, this print here, this and this print here, were all done on the 4-colour Canon TC20 that I'm testing at the minute. That has a relatively tiny gamut. So, I'm looking at this. Why am I not giving you the numbers to work this out yourself? Well, that's because I know from experience. I've done lots of talks, camera clubs and the likes of that, talking about colour management. And the number of people who are truly comfortable with concepts of gamut, what goes on inside the gamut, so the smoothness of colours, transitions, looking at stuff like that, the number of people who really understand that is very small. Why should they? You don't need to understand it for most printing. But There are some people who do understand it and say, Keith, why aren't you giving us all the figures and numbers? And this comes back to why am I not doing it? Because for most people, charts like this are just pretty pictures. They have no underlying meaning. And the danger is that meaning gets assigned to them, which is actually not really that relevant. Because remember, accurate colour doesn't necessarily equate with good looking colour. It's about how the print looks. Now, I will be doing some upcoming testing. I'm hoping to go back to Dupli, where they've got an Epson P9500, 12 colour fine art printer, and they've got the P8500 I looked at recently. Now, it's apples and oranges. They're aimed at very different markets, but I'm going to try and print some images that actually show the difference that you get from by spending a lot of money on a fine art type printer with lots of inks. Now, it'll be a little artificial because I'll be picking images that show the difference, but equally well, I will be also printing some images which don't show a difference, because that's important to understand as well. If you really want the numbers, one of the things I do with every printer review I've done for years is I make the profiles that I've produced available. So if you want to open up the profiles in something like this in ColorSync Utility, and there are online versions of this and other bits of software you can use for analysing this. If you understand what you're doing and you want to do, just ask me for the profiles. They are yours to analyse as much as you like. However, I'm not putting that analysis in my reviews, because every chart of data that I put needs a whole lot of explanation. I'm not putting it in the written reviews. I may do a small bit of the detail when I'm looking at aspects of black and white printing and things, but I'm not going to put all that colour information. If you want it, I will help you get it, but I can't put sufficient explanations in certainly video printer reviews, paper reviews and the likes, to actually be helpful and meaningful. Sure, I could give numbers, but I know that a lot of people would actually just read into those whatever they want. It's the difficulty of, without the background knowledge to understand this stuff, it's just meaningless data. Now, if you want it to have meaning, read something like that. Real World Colour Management, Fraser et al. This, as much as anything, is why I won't include a lot of data. Now, I'm going to try and show some differences between printers, and certainly in printing with this, using the TC20 here, with its just 4 colour inks. In doing that, I can show some images that really don't have the oomph that I would get on printing on, say, the P5000 that's here. There is no point, though, in comparing them directly with charts and things like this, because, well, what does it serve? It tells you that you buy a printer like this that's marketed at proofing and fine art printing. It does better than a printer like this, which is marketed at producing posters. It's got ink tanks, it's cheaper to run. They're two different things. Comparisons are meaningless. And I come too often, people want comparisons because they want me to tell them which one to buy. I don't sell printers, I never will, so I am not ever going to tell you which printer to buy. Don't ask me for recommendations. I do not give recommendations. I will supply information for you to make your own choice. Similarly, why I don't cover costs and things, because costs vary all over the world. But from a colour management point of view, I will help provide data for you to do it, but I'm not going to work it out for you. If stuff like this and the numbers and the analysis of this mean things, ask me for the data and I'll happily supply it. But in the meantime, I'm afraid you're just going to have to put up with me saying, well, this is good, this is not so good, I like this one, I don't necessarily think this one's quite so good for a particular application. Because, and if you watched many of my videos, you will know that the answer, when somebody asks me what's the best for something, the answer is almost always, it depends. I hope that's been of some help and explains where I'm coming from for printer reviews and the likes, and that it's usual. Please do ask questions, because it's people asking questions that really have just sort of prompted me to make this short video. So thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, and bye.